Hey everyone, it's Duncan from 4xtouring.com. In this video, I thought I'll talk to you about an observation I made with tire pressures. Now, right from the outset, I must mention I am not a tire expert. It's just sharing with you my observations when it comes to my 4x4, which is my 80 series Dicerus, and hopefully that information might be useful to you. Now, you may be an expert in tires or have greater knowledge than I have, then of course please leave your comments below because I'd like to learn from you as well. Now, by the way, if you are new to my channel, please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, because my channel is all about sharing my experiences in overlanding with the rest of the community, and I also learn from you. So, tire pressures. Now, of course, we all know we have to keep, tire pressures accurate as possible, consistent, and that's all. Everybody knows that. But what I wanted to share with you was an observation I made recently, and this is to do with air inside expanding and contracting depending on tire temperatures, ambient temperatures, and all that combined. Now recently, it's still winter for us, or the tail end of winter, and I have a tire pressure monitoring system on board, so that gives me real-time readouts of what my pressures are. And I had gone around to the local servo. Those of you who are not in Australia, servo is like a gas station or petrol station, and I filled up my tires. Now I usually run 38 psi at the back and 35 in the front. Now depending on the load, I might increase that a bit more, but generally that's what I run. So I topped it up, and also not trusting the gauges at filling stations entirely. I took my gauge out, checked it, it was perfect, 38 at the back, 35 in the front. Came home, parked it, and then the following morning when I was about to head out for this camping trip, checked the tire pressures, it had actually gone down to 31. Now of course the reason for this is because overnight the air would have, because of temperatures dropping off, the volume inside would have reduced or contracted, and therefore the pressures dropped off 31. So I thought to myself, okay, that's cool. Probably as I drive, it's going to pick up back again. And funny enough, it didn't pick up back to 38 and 35, and I really don't know the reason for that. There's no leaks as far as I know, and perhaps again someone who's far more knowledgeable than I am could maybe shed some light as to why that would have happened. But the rears went back to 35, 36 in between, and the fronts were around 34. So that's a bit of a mystery to me. Anyways, so I then thought, okay, let me pull up again, and I pulled to the side of the road. I took my own compressor, filled it up back to 38 and 35. Checked again with my second gauge. It was fine, readings were perfect, and off we headed out for our camping trip, where we are right now. And as we continued to drive, this temperature increased well beyond what I had pumped in. Now again, I would have expected that, because as the wheels turn, the temperature builds up and the air inside expands. But to my surprise, it went quite a fair bit more. So I had pumped them back up to 38, 35, but as I drove, the rears went up to about 45, which is considerable in my opinion, and the fronts hit about 42, 43, thereabout. So it was quite a lot, from going from 35 to 40, and from 38 going to about 45, 46, somewhere there. So anyway, I came to the campsite, parked off, and then once it was settled in, next day morning, checked it, it had dropped back down to about 32 in the front and 34 at the back. Now, I haven't started driving again. There's definitely no leaks in these tires, I know that for a fact, but it just gives you an idea of how much the air inside expands and contracts. Now, if you are a keen follower of racing, or perhaps you would have done some racing yourself, you would know how tire pressures are critical, absolutely critical. Well, that's at, you know, that edge of performance, which we don't really need to be bothered with. But the surprise to me was by how much the tire pressures can jump or reduce, for that matter. So the reason for sharing this with you on this video was to keep an eye on that. Now, of course, this could vary from the type of tires you have, type of driving conditions, the ambient conditions, and so on. But it is important to keep that in mind. So several reasons. So for instance, if you are doing a long drive and you're heavily loaded and these tire pressures increase by a considerable margin, that could be a bit of a safety issue, I feel. So perhaps once you've filled it up, you know, you've done your first 50 or 60 kilometers, and then might be a good idea to pull over, and while you're having a cup of tea or beer or whatever, you know, check the pressures again and maybe perhaps bring it down, because now it's come to that, you know, optimum temperature. Bring it down to the safe levels. At the same time, when you're off-road and you drop your tire pressures and you think, okay, you know, you need to go really low, say for example, you want to go down to about 20 psi or 15 psi, whatever, and you start driving, especially on thick sand, you may not really be having that low of a pressure, which you really need for those driving conditions. It might just, you know, push back up again. And also need to keep in mind is when air comes out of your compressor, especially if it's compressed air coming out of a tank, it's really, really cold. So again, like I said, I'm no expert. I would, you know, think, you know, if you push in, you know, so much of cold air, then when it expands, it should go fairly high. But I really don't understand the whole mechanics and the physics of it, but it's just my observation, and as I said, sharing it with you so that you can kind of keep an eye on your pressures. And you know, safety is important when you do long trips. And as I said, in my case, this discrepancies was fairly considerable in my opinion. So I'd like to hear what you think, and if you had similar experiences. If not, you know, just monitor your pressures. You don't necessarily have to have an onboard tire pressure monitoring system, though I would recommend it. You don't have to have one, but every now and then when you're doing a trip, particularly a long run trip, just check your tire pressures. You might be surprised what you find, and that'll help you to maintain the pressures better. So I hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, please do give it a thumbs up, leave a comment behind, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscription button, notification bell, and I try and bring out a video every single week. Thanks for watching.